to Watch is an intimate look into the lives of prominent and influential women leaders from around the world and the challenges they faced on their journey. It's the real story behind her title. Join us every week to hear more stories about women from around the world and in your own communities at womentowatch.net. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another week of Women to Watch. I'm Sue Rocco. It's so great to be here with all of you. I'm super excited about my guest this week. Her name is Jamie Gier, and Jamie is the CMO of DexCare, which is a healthcare technology company focusing on patient access. Jamie has a great backstory, and she's going to be talking to us about the messiness of life and why her leadership style is heart-centered. Be sure to follow us on our YouTube channel at W2W Media, as well as your favorite podcast platform. And now I'm excited and honored to welcome to the show, Jamie Gier. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Sue. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you.
Well, thank you. You know, we had a really wonderful introductory call, I guess, a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, and I'm looking forward to it as well. I think you have a really inspiring story, both personally and professionally. And the first thing I always love to do is just give our viewers and listeners a sense of where you came from. And so I know that you were born in Washington State. Tell me a little bit about the community, the neighborhood.
Sure. So I was born in Eastern Washington in a small town called Pasco. Not so small now, it's grown quite a bit. But at the time, there was about 13,000 people in the town. And central to Pasco is a college, Columbia Basin College, where my dad worked. And so that was kind of our anchor point into the community. But I mean, it was a great growing up in the neighborhood. It was at a time when we were out on the streets riding our bikes and roller skating and doing all of those things that you do as a child of the 70s. So I'm kind of dating myself here a little bit.
And the 70s as well. It's the best time. It was the absolute best time.
It was the late 70s and early 80s, and all of my friends lived close by. And so we were maybe separated by a few blocks. And it was one of those upbringings where you're outside all the time with your friends, and we didn't have devices, and the relationships were just really tight and strong. And that was the community that I grew up in. In fact, one of my best friends today, and I'm in my 50s, is a friend that I grew up with since I was 7 years old.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah, that's really special. You were the youngest of five. And I would say, you know, you shared with me one of the greatest impacts, I would say, for you was that your mom left the house when you were only 7 years old. And as the youngest of five, all of a sudden, Dad has this great responsibility. And I wonder if you just can talk about what that impact was for you.
Yeah. And so you're correct. My parents got divorced when I was quite young. And I had the unconventional upbringing of staying in the house with my dad. And my mom was the one to move out. And that was really not the norm. But she moved close by and had a place close to us for a variety of reasons. That was the arrangement. And I have just a wonderful relationship with my mom. But at that time, that was a very unconventional arrangement. And you know, to grow up with your father, and he was a prominent figure in the community, had his PhD in education. He was a teacher, an administrator at the college. He was a coach. To live under the roof of somebody who kind of had that community presence, but also the expectations that he had on us as kids, and how that kind of shaped my life, including well into my professional years. But, you know, to be that young and to not have both parents in the house, that's a tough place to be. And I think it also explains a lot of the personality traits that I have today, and my desire of independence, and I think grit and determination, and all of the things that impact kids when they go through a situation like divorce.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your dad. What was his parenting style?
Oh, gosh. Well, he was a very busy person. Look, he had a very big appreciation for education. Obviously, as a coach, health and wellness and team sports were really important to him. And I would say he was a disciplinarian for sure, and he had a lot of expectations for us. He was German too, so he had a little bit of this stoic personality and didn't really have a lot of emotions behind that, except for when he was on the field. Of course, as a coach, it's quite different. But because of his role in the community, I think he had a lot of expectations of us, but he was very loving. He was very kind. My mom too, so I don't want to leave her out of that. But for a young daughter to be raised by her father in the formative years like that, it was just a very unique situation.
So when you were thinking about, people ask, grown-ups ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What were your dreams and aspirations when you were young?
I don't know that I had an aspiration for a particular field. Now, I think maybe because my dad was involved in the college and I spent a lot of time going up there and being in the classroom, perhaps it was a teacher. Obviously, that's not what I am today, but that was certainly something that I loved to pretend doing and maybe was inspired by my father. But what I can remember in those early years, Sue, is I think because of my family situation and how you deal with that as a young child, I just remember going, I'm going to put myself in a situation of wanting to be independent, emotionally, financially independent, whatever pathway that takes me. But I also found a lot of inspiration. I was a reader, active reader, avid reader, and I am to this day. But my outlet in those situations of going through the trials and tribulations of your parents getting divorced, my outlet really was in books and stories and visualizing what my life potentially could be or being immersed in other people's lives and stories. And to me, that was more of the inspiration behind what I would become eventually. But there wasn't one thing that I was aspiring to be at that young of an age. It was more of the qualities and traits and characteristics of me as a human and how I would use that to see myself in a different state as an adult.
Yeah, that's interesting because I would say, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later in the show, so much of marketing is storytelling, right? Getting to the heart of the story of a company and using your imagination as a young girl in diving into those books probably carried over, a bit into your career.
Oh, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. I think it was the books, but also in our household. I think this also gets back to my dad valuing education so much. Is I'd wake up in the morning and NPR would be on the radio, so I'm naturally listening to the stories that are shared on the radio. We listen to 60 Minutes every Sunday evening, and so those stories. So whether it was broadcast or radio or books, the power of the story to really captivate. And that was I learned that at an early age. And I just remember being so fascinated by how people live their lives outside of my little tiny town.
Hmm.
And I think that did ultimately fuel me into becoming a marketer because a lot of what we do is storytelling. Our role is to take an idea and bring it to market. And the ways that we do that is simply by telling stories around the brand or the product.
Right.
And so I think that's really what spurred me into this profession. Now, to be quite clear, I thought I was going to be an engineer. And at the time that I was contemplating that, I was really good at math, but there were not a lot of females in the engineering profession. And so I'm like, hey, there's a lot of space for people like me. I think I'll get into that. But ultimately found that was not my passion, that communications and marketing was the route that I wanted to go. And I like the human element of it.
Yeah, they're so different, engineering and communications. What were you exposed to that made you think engineering might be a good field for you?
Well, I love math. I
Okay.
absolutely love math. And by the time that I got into junior college, I was taking advanced courses and thought, hey, that might be something that I want to get into. I did one of my earliest jobs when I was going to college was working with engineers. And so I got exposed to it. And I think that was probably also the place where I determined that's not the place for me at the same time.
You're very lucky.
I didn't imagine myself doing that.
You must have left brain, right brain. If you're good at math and also, communications and language.
Yes, and I think sometimes this gets lost in the profession of what I do, Sue, and that is to be a good marketer, you're constantly straddling between your left and your right sides of your brain. There's the science of marketing and there's the art of marketing. And it's a delicate balance because, especially nowadays, when you have so many other channels that you can reach and engage your buyers and your customers, including digital channels, there's a science behind how you do that. Now we have access to more data than ever behind consumer behavior and buyer behavior, and you're always looking and evaluating and analyzing to see if there's any signals that you can pick up on that would inform, okay, how do I best message or how do I reach this audience? And so there's a lot of data intensive components to what we do. It's very taxing. And then there's swinging back over to the right side, which is the more creative aspect. So there's the balance of doing both to be a really, really good marketer. The other piece of that, though, is a leader of people. I have people on my team who swing more towards the left side of the brain. They're on the operational side of marketing. And then I have my creative team. As a leader, I have to know how to guide, how to mentor, how to inspire, how to manage different types of personalities depending upon the angle of marketing that they do, and to constantly shift between one side and the other, it's exhausting at times. Like you walk away just mentally fatigued by the overexercising of the brain.
I bet. Do you enjoy that aspect of it, or would you prefer to stay in one or the other lane?
I enjoy both.
Okay.
I enjoy both. So I consider myself a whole brain marketer for all intents and purposes. But I think there is something intellectually stimulating about both. But I definitely know when I'm out of balance, when I'm spending too much time doing number crunching and data analysis and really trying to look at the operational side and impact of marketing. When I spend too much time there, I really start craving and missing the creative aspect of what I do. So I try to create a lot of space in my day to exercise both, or at least carve out a day or a day and a half every week where I'm just focused on the creative aspect of marketing, whether it's the next brand campaign, whether it's working on our website, if I have to write a blog, just trying to really stay connected to that. Because I think as marketers, we're so trying to show and demonstrate our impact that we spend too much time looking at the numbers and really not practicing our craft, or the reason why we got into the profession to begin with.
That's interesting to me, because while you have to look at the analytics, right? Always to see where you're placing all of your campaigns and just where you're trying to reach people. Sometimes I think there's almost too many places. It's so different certainly from the 70s, where there were just a couple of places that you could market a company.
Right. And I find myself reaching back to just the basics of marketing and how to inspire and influence people. And going back to the things that are tried and true. And there's so much still relevant in the way we used to market that I try to carry forward today. When we, at a time when we didn't have the tools that we have access to today. And I don't think it's changed. I don't think the way that you fundamentally inspire and persuade and influence people to want to try your brand or your product has changed. In fact, I think we're losing a little bit of that. And
that personal, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think it's always about moving somebody emotionally first.
It is, especially when they have so many choices. And today there's a lot of different choices for competing products. And how do you break through that? I became really fascinated. I talked about this on a different show, of the power of storytelling and why it matters in marketing, but why it matters in life too, especially at a time when everything just feels so contentious and so divisive. And storytelling just has a way to bring people together. So business aside, there's a lot of research that's been done on how stories connect people who may have differing opinions. They call it brain to brain coupling, and there's been a lot of research done out of Princeton and other places that show brain activity when somebody simply tells a story about themselves that can connect with another human being. And that's a door opener. So I see it in real life, but I also see it in my profession.
Yeah. I know you've spent 25 years, and I believe always in healthcare technology end of marketing. You were with, is that correct as far as the field?
Yes, the majority of my career was in healthcare technology.
Yeah. GE, Microsoft, DreamBox, big companies. And you shared with me, this is a quote, you said to me, my identity is wrapped up in my career. And so I wanted to ask you if you are okay with that, or is that something that as you've gotten older, you would like to change?
I don't know that I would want to change it. I think what I want to do is balance it out a little bit more. And that did happen when I became a mom. But again, if we go back to my formative years and my drive to want to be independent and to be emotionally and financially independent and carve out my own life, a lot of that ended up being wrapped up in my job. And so I found a lot of fulfillment. No, I'm not saying that I'm naturally good at what I do. I have to work hard at what I do. And so, but I have a lot of determination and motivation. I read a lot, I study a lot. I want to learn. I'm naturally curious, and I feel like I'm constantly learning. But as I got into my profession and found, wow, I'm actually not bad at doing this, and I really, really enjoy it. A lot of my identity as I started to move up in my role and in the profession, a lot of my identity became exactly that. And I think maybe it was because I was trying to prove something to myself, to other people, and found something that did drive a lot of fulfillment. It became a big piece of who I am today.
Yeah, I think that's often the case. I will ask women, what is the driving force behind your ambition and success? And you mentioned um, emotional independence. Describe that for me. What do you mean by that?
I think any child that comes from a broken family and has parents that have gone through divorce, you almost feel like you become a parent to them.
Mm,
And you lose a little bit of yourself in the process. And there's a lot of emotions. There's emotions around feeling isolated. There's emotions around the optics of what are people are going to think about this? What are my friends going to think? What are their parents going to think? And at the time that my parents divorced, it was not very common. Today it feels very commonplace. I think half of all marriages end in divorce. That was not the case growing up for me. And so there's the element of, even at that young age, being very aware of what the gossip may have been or what people were thinking, but also my own feelings of wanting to take care of my mom and wanting to take care of my dad and how emotional they were during this time. And so I felt a lot of myself being absorbed into that situation. And I think subconsciously, probably, I was, thinking around I need to break myself apart from that
mm,
and make that I'm emotionally secure as a human being. And how do I do that? How do I make sure that I can withstand and cope through difficult situations like my parents had to do?
yeah.
And so I think some of it came from that. And if you've gone through a divorce, whether as a child or somebody who, as a spouse, this probably resonates on many, many levels.
I think it's one of the greatest lessons we can learn is to not be affected emotionally by the people around us. So we can care, but not let their emotions affect us. Um,
Yes. And I think that's exactly what it is, because I don't want it to be portrayed as I don't value community and relationships, because I absolutely do. I'm naturally a people person. And I have a very strong core of friends and family members in a community that I love. One of my favorite things is to spend time with them. And so it's not necessarily becoming emotionally separated from human relationships. I think it's exactly, you just stated perfectly, which is, how do you not take on other people's emotions and have to carry that on? And I think as a child, I did do that in either trying to protect my parents or protect myself. And you pick up on that, and to preserve your own, I guess, sanity, there's a little bit of that decoupling that has to happen.
Yes. We're going to go into our first break. When we come back, I want to talk about DexCare and the company and what your role is there. Stay tuned for Good News with Christy McCaffrey, and we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Christy McCaffrey, and I'm the founder and owner of Be the Good Media, and I'm here to share some good news. I wanted to share with you about a recent guest I had on my podcast named Maria Picconi. After her daughter was born with a rare genetic disorder called Prader-Willi syndrome, Maria and her husband committed themselves to finding solutions for rare diseases. Together, they created a company called Trend Community. And what Trend Community does is it collects conversations from rare, chronic, and emerging disease communities and turns their conversations into actionable insights. They're doing incredible work to help move the needle forward for rare disease communities. To hear more of our conversation, visit BeTheGoodMedia.com, and there you'll learn more about how Be the Good Media is working to amplify impact-driven missions and causes. I'm Christy McCaffrey. Listen here for more good news on Women to Watch.
We are CHOP, and we can't wait to show you around. We're the nation's first children's hospital. Now, a care network with more than 50 locations that continues to expand. 3 state-of-the-art research buildings with 1.5 million square feet of space. We have grown from 12 beds 165 years ago to nearly 600 beds and one of the best children's hospitals in the world. We have a level 1 trauma center, 11 floors of patient units, more than 20 operating rooms, first of its kind delivery unit for babies with birth defects, a separate cardiac operative and catheterization suite, and places to learn, like our internationally recognized simulation center. We have trained generations of leaders in the field of pediatrics. We are world leaders in medicine, surgery, and science. One of the top recipients in NIH funding for pediatric research. In this building, pioneers in CAR T therapy, mitochondrial disease, brain tumors, hyperinsulinism, and other rare diseases. Here, groundbreaking work in fetal surgery, genetics and genomics, and neurology. In our newest building, leaders in social determinants of health, clinical informatics and epidemiology, autism, trauma and injury prevention. Our patients come from every state and 115 countries. Meeting these challenges requires the best and the brightest. We are passionate about pediatrics. We are motivated to make a difference in the world and in our community. We are a team. We are CHOP.
Welcome back to the show. I'm joined this week by Jamie Gier, and Jamie is the CMO of DexCare. And I'd love for you, Jamie, to talk a little bit about the company. I think that if we talk about industries that really have changed significantly from the time we were growing up, it's certainly healthcare and access and technology. So first tell our listeners and viewers what DexCare is.
So DexCare is a platform that simply allows health systems to know when somebody is searching for care and needs care and navigates them to the best fit care options. And so how we do that is we send signals to the health system that when somebody is looking for care, that they're first discovered, the health system is first discovered. And then based on reason for visit or reason for need, and then the capacity that the health system has, we do a matching. So that matching could be based on a preference for a type of provider. It could be based on a location. So if you don't have a car and what matters to you as a patient, you just need the convenience of going down the street. Or perhaps you don't need to be seen physically. You can be seen in a virtual environment. We just make sure that all of those things are matched appropriately so that the patient can be seen and get care.
Is it being done? Is the company using any AI for this, or?
We are using AI for this. There is a way by which we can determine when somebody is visiting, let's say, one of the web pages of the health system, and we know kind of what the intent is behind that. We can actually merchandise care options for the patient on that page, but it's simply using different types of algorithms to determine what they're reading. And then, so for example, let's say, Sue, you're visiting a blog page of your local health system that has to do with flus and colds. We'll know that, and we will expose inventory of appointments for different doctors who you could be seen by to treat a cold, to treat the flu. Maybe you want to do a virtual visit, retail clinic visit. And so we're using AI to do that.
Okay. So, how would you address, it sounds like there's tracking. People today they talk a lot about the fact that everywhere we go online, everything we do is definitely being tracked. And then information has come to us based on that. It's kind of customizing. Do you get any pushback from patients about that, or is it all?
Well, we're very, very careful. Obviously, we're dealing with protected health information, and so everything that we do is compliant within what we call HIPAA. And so there's laws and regulations around what you can do that protects any of the privacy of a patient. And so we're very careful about that. And usually if we're picking up on a signal, it's somebody that's just visiting. Like you can make an inference that if somebody's visiting a page that has to do with flus or colds, and all you're doing is showing inventory of if they need to be seen by a physician, it's just picking up on that. So, but we are very, very, we're very careful about that. And in fact, all of our pages that we create, we strip out any protected information that has to do with the patient.
So tell me what kinds of things you're doing, in your position with the company to reach the patients that need to know about the company.
Well, we sell direct to hospitals and health systems.
Okay.
And so they are the ones that use the platform to be able to acquire patients into their health system and make sure that they're navigated to the right care. And so I spend my day marketing to our buyers that happen to be the health systems and provider organizations.
Okay. So you're dealing with the institutions, not patients individually.
Exactly. I'm not dealing with the patients directly, no.
Yeah. And, as the chief medical marketing officer, tell me a little bit about your own leadership style. What kinds of things do you do or say to your team to keep them motivated and excited about the work?
Well, I try to follow what I call a servant leader mentality. And that is essentially, I'm here to help serve my own team and get the best out of them. I'm hiring experts to come in and practice their own craft. I don't claim to know every aspect and discipline of marketing, but I have found in my 25-year career that when you simply empower your own people to be the best that they can, they will deliver. And so my leadership style is simply to help support them. Obviously, I'm there to help set strategy and make sure that everyone is pointing to a North Star and that we're all working for the common good and in great alignment. But it's simply making sure that they feel like they can have impact and some autonomy, and I'm always here for them. But I really like to lead with a servant heart, because I've just found time and time again that I get the best delivery out of people when I lead that way.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the differences are today? The biggest differences that you're seeing in consumer behaviors, I'll say. What is it that is challenging for you as a marketing person in the way that people are trying to find information?
Oh gosh, man. And whether you're in a B2C business or B2B, it's the same. The buying behavior is not linear.
No.
People are all over the place in terms of where they go to get information, how they consume information, their preferences for that. And it's kind of a convoluted ball of activity that's happening. So it's pretty complex. I know in my field of healthcare technology, our buying cycle is 12 to 18 months, and you have a committee of 8 to 10 people that you have to bring along who either influence doing business with you or are the ones that actually decide to do it. And the way that you speak and communicate with them and influence how they see the relationship varies, and it's nuanced. And so you have to work really hard to make sure that whomever you're speaking to during that long sales cycle and over time, so they stay engaged, there's a lot of work that goes into doing that, because it is such a long process. And so for me as a marketer, I'm looking at all different types of channels based on where I think people go and get information, and the kind of content is really important. I don't create selling content. I create educational content, because what I'm trying to convey to our buyers is we are a trusted source of information for you. We know that you have a lot of different choices that you can go to, but we're here as your trusted advisor. And that seems to work very well to build trust and to, activate a relationship with them.
I think you're really a partner almost, right? You're a partner for a hospital that it's looking to educate the patients that are coming to them for where they should be going.
Absolutely. We are a partner. In fact, years ago, I was doing some brand research and was talking to a CIO of a very large health system. And when I asked him to share with me, how do you define a relationship with your vendor? He was very quick to say, well, it's a marriage. You can equate it to a marriage. It is a long-term partnership, and it's going to ebb and flow, and you're going to have great moments and not so great moments. So how do you weather that? And how do you keep that relationship intact and going? And that was really pivotal for me to think about that as a marketer, because that's where the idea of a very trusted source of information and trusted partner, that's what they're looking for. And that changes a lot of the dynamics, which is why I think even in my space, we spend a lot of time and investment in how do we simply break bread with our own customers and make sure that we have a really solid relationship intact, and that we can be honest and open about the status of the relationship. How do we make each other better? It's kind of interesting to talk about it in that way, because you're like, my gosh, it does sound like a marriage. And truly it is, because they're making a long-term investment in you as a partner. And at the end of the day, Sue, I mean, this is healthcare. So it can be a matter of life or death for people, but it's a very emotional thing for everyone who consumes healthcare, whether you're providing it or whether you're receiving it. It doesn't matter. It's a very human, emotional business that we're in.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's become so complicated, with the portals and, all of the, I think the technology can be very, very helpful and streamline things. But at the same time, it's just become more complicated and more important than ever. Healthcare.
It has. And I think part of it too is that consumers have more choices of where they can go to get their care.
Right. Yeah.
They're used to having, especially if you're managing different types of chronic conditions, you can have 4 to 5 different providers that make up your care team. They might all work for different provider organizations. I feel long gone are the days where you had your family practice doctor like I did. I still remember his name, Dr. Axford. He and his wife, they were my caretaking.
Right.
They provided.
Mine was Dr. Williams, and he lived down the street.
Exactly. So they live down the street, but
Yeah.
it does feel like we have complicated our health system. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. There's the payment structure and how you get reimbursed. There's the reality that many of us are dealing with different types of conditions that require very highly specialized care and specialty care. And certainly technology has been a blessing, but I think it's also complicated. I mean, there's a reason why we've infused more technology into our care. Some of it has to do with patient safety and physicians or clinicians knowing as much about you as they possibly can so that they treat you in the right way. But I think that we've complicated a system where people just want to see their doctor, get diagnosed, get treated, and be on their way.
Be able to ask a question. That's one of the things that I feel as though we're always being rushed through the system, rushed through an appointment, and that's one of the tough things.
Well, I was just going to say, I think now you're starting to see why there's this growing trend, if you will, for concierge medicine, which is you pay a monthly. It's very expensive. Yeah, it's not something that you can scale for everyday average Americans, but some people are making the investment in it because they see the value. I wish that we could scale that on a level that it could be more affordable for us.
I want to mention also because you're sitting in a C-suite, right? And you've worked, you've been a leader in the field for a very long time. Actually, I have two questions. For a young woman who might be listening, what do you think it was about you that allowed you to consistently move up in marketing? What were you purposeful about it? Did you say to yourself, I want to be a leader in the field, or were you just kind of going and doing the work and people were recognizing it?
I think it was both.
And
I think it was both. And as I became more knowledgeable around business and how to grow your career, because I did not come from a household of business leaders or business people that were in a business profession. And my dad was an educator and a coach. My mom was a secretary, or that's what they used to call them back then, a secretary. So I was learning a lot as I was going, but it comes back to this, again, to come full circle, is I had so much determination to want to be better at what I could do and who I could be, and the grit and the resilience to weather the different storms that would come, in my profession. And so I worked really, really hard to always learn, to have, a network of people that would be honest with me and could help open up doors where I needed to have doors open, kind of my personal board of directors. But I think that the biggest thing, honestly, is I refused to see the barriers and I refused to see the impediments that were ahead of me that could prevent me from growing in my career or taking more advanced roles. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up on the obstacles ahead of us or in our everyday lives that it prevents us from seeing beyond that. And I never wanted those obstacles to take up too much of my heart or mind space, because you tend to focus on those things. And I just didn't want to do that.
But you must have believed in yourself as well. Did you have that belief, that confidence?
That's an interesting question, because I think I had some degree of confidence, but we always have a little bit of that imposter syndrome that we deal with, and that's our own insecurities. I still have some of that. But I think for me, and one of the things I've been working on with my own coach, is I never feel like I've done quite enough. And so I'm not taking the victory lap and I'm not celebrating how far I've come. It's always oh, I can do more, or that was great, but you know what? I should have done this, or I should have gone 10 extra percent better at something else. And so there's this constant critiquing of myself, and
Meanwhile, you have probably over and over and over again done enough.
yes,
You've already
yeah.
done
And
enough.
so, we like to
Right?
talk about the fear of rejection, when in reality for myself, it's not other people doing that, it's me rejecting myself.
Mm.
And I remember listening to one of your guests, and she had mentioned, you got to bet on yourself. And she was absolutely right in saying that. And I think the confidence that I put in myself is more, not that I have a lot of confidence in my abilities, but more I have confidence in betting on myself. And that has also required getting to a place where I'm not constantly rejecting myself. And that rejection comes from, did I give it enough? Have I gone enough? Do I have enough experience? Should I have a seat at the table? It's the constant. It's not somebody telling me I shouldn't or can't. It's myself.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I hope you can get to that place because you have, your career has proven your abilities, your capabilities. So it's fascinating to me how the old kind of tapes that play in our head can still resurface over and over again, well into our adulthood, when we have had this success that already says, you've done it. I want you to lastly, I wanted you to talk about your son, because I know how important being a mother is to you. It's the most important thing. And you're a single mom to a teenage boy.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about him and what you hope for him in his own journey.
Well, first of all, the mom role is probably my greatest, most fulfilling role. In fact, not probably, it is. And I like to consider myself having two CMO roles, one marketing officer, the other mom officer. And it's been probably the greatest teaching, the greatest role from the standpoint of learning about people and learning about love. And he is, so a little bit about my son. He's a teen, he's a junior in high school. So I've got one more year with him, Sue, before he goes off to college. I told him,
it's hard.
It is very difficult. And this might not come as a surprise, but I've always told him, if I've done my job well as your mother and as your guide, then you can go off into the world with a degree of independence. Not that you will be fully independent, but you know how to make good decisions about life. And some of that, you're going to fall down, get back up. But the more that I can teach him how to live in the world and make decisions based on experience and, the world around him, then I've done my job. But it's not always easy, because as a mother, you always want to hold on to your babies. But I've always seen it as, I got to prepare you to go out in the world and be a great human being and a contributing member of society.
Right. I know it's very hard. It is our job to teach them so that they can go off and be independent, but you never lose that connection, that emotional connection to the baby.
Yeah. The baby, right? The baby. And I think in some cases too, I, as a single mom in the business world, it's challenging of how do you maintain both your home environment and your working environment. And by the way, I don't mean that in any way to suggest that homes that have both parents in the home, it's any different, but you got to be honest, as a single parent, it's a little more challenging to do that. And there's been situations where I've had to blend both. I don't try to get to work-life balance. I try to integrate as much as I can, but I've been very blessed to work for companies and for people where, when I needed to bring my son into the office because summer camp didn't go for a full day or something else. Now he's at an age where he's fine being at home, but back when he was younger, I had to do that. And I'm hoping that in showing other women who might be in a similar situation, that it's okay. I mean, it's okay when you have moments that you've got to go be with your child, or to blend that a little bit more. Hopefully I've provided a little bit of inspiration, and also just talking about my situation. I don't know that people are always real comfortable about talking about their life as a mom or a parent, or, kind of the messiness of our lives. And hopefully I can inspire people that everyone has a messy life. I don't care how well put together you might be on the facade. Everyone has something going on.
Exactly. And I do think companies are waking up to this more and being more supportive, which is the good news.
Yes, it is the good
Yeah.
news. You don't want to take advantage of it, but certainly I think that I'm more open to it.
Well, listen, I enjoyed the conversation very much, and I'm so appreciative of your taking time to be on the show and share a bit about your life journey.
Thank you so much, Sue. This has been great.
We're going to go into our last break, and you'll hear from AJ Andrews with our Health Watch. I'll be right back to close out the show.
Hey, I'm AJ Bishop Andrews, and I'm thrilled to be joining you as a new contributor to this incredible podcast. As the CEO and founder of the 9 to Thrive, I'm passionate about helping women achieve financial security and empowerment, especially when it comes to making bold career moves. I've met so many talented women who dream of leaving their corporate jobs to pursue their calling, but they're held back by the fear of losing their financial stability. I get it, because I've been there. I know how it feels to be stuck in a career that no longer aligns with your values, but to worry about how you'll pay the bills if you make a change. But here's what I've discovered. When you have a solid financial plan in place, when you know exactly where your income is coming from and how you'll cover your expenses, the fear starts to lose its power. And that's what we do at the 9 to Thrive. We give women the tools and strategies they need to create a financial roadmap and exit strategy that supports their dreams. When you have that kind of financial clarity and confidence, you're free to make choices that truly light you up inside. I believe women are meant for bigger things and want a life that aligns with their deepest values and aspirations. Because ultimately, this journey is about so much more than money. It's about claiming your power, your purpose, and your potential. It's about creating a life that's truly worth living. To learn more about the 9 to Thrive pathway and our growing community, you can find us on LinkedIn or visit my website at ajbishop.co. Here's to your financial freedom and living a life that truly sets your soul on fire.
We are CHOP, and we can't wait to show you around. We're the nation's first children's hospital. Now, a care network with more than 50 locations that continues to expand. 3 state-of-the-art research buildings with 1.5 million square feet of space. We have grown from 12 beds 165 years ago to nearly 600 beds and one of the best children's hospitals in the world. We have a level 1 trauma center, 11 floors of patient units, more than 20 operating rooms, first of its kind delivery unit for babies with birth defects, a separate cardiac operative and catheterization suite, and places to learn, like our internationally recognized simulation center. We have trained generations of leaders in the field of pediatrics. We are world leaders in medicine, surgery, and science. One of the top recipients in NIH funding for pediatric research. In this building, pioneers in CAR T therapy, mitochondrial disease, brain tumors, hyperinsulinism, and other rare diseases. Here, groundbreaking work in fetal surgery, genetics and genomics, and neurology. In our newest building, leaders in social determinants of health, clinical informatics and epidemiology, autism, trauma and injury prevention. Our patients come from every state and 115 countries. Meeting these challenges requires the best and the brightest. We are passionate about pediatrics. We are motivated to make a difference in the world and in our community. We are a team. We are CHOP.
That's it, everyone, for another week of Women to Watch. Stay tuned for my conversation next week with Kathleen Brandenburg. Kathleen is the co-founder of the IA Collaborative. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to visit our website at womentowatch.net, where you can support our content and learn how you can become a part of our watch team. Thanks so much to our sponsors, and have a great week, everyone.